Welcome to CNC Underground After Hours, the podcast for people somewhere between G-code, production deadlines, and motivating machinists with donuts. Today's guest has been manufacturing since the age of 13, started with weed pulling and toilet scrubbing at the family shop. He's done nearly every job on the floor to the front office, and now he is president and CEO of MPMA, a Marine Corps veteran. Thank you for your service. And he ran his first marathon at age 11. Please welcome to the Underground, Steve Kalina. Welcome, Steve.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yes, of course. So let's start there. 11 years old, marathon. Punishment or choice?
I had a lot of family members and community members that were saying it was a terrible idea for a kid and then kind of criticizing my parents. But no, I just got into running. I had a couple other family members that were into it and just kind of started following along with my dad and just decided I wanted to get right into marathon running. So I don't think I would approve of it for my own 11-year-old, but mine at the time.
But you still do it today, yeah?
Yeah, I over the years, I've had years where I was fairly competitive and getting in good shape. And now I try and balance just doing it for health and just as a challenge, but still
great.
Every year or two.
Well, you focus a lot on community involvement, especially at MPMA, and the state fair is coming up. And there's a special day on August 30th. It's called Manufactured Day. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, super excited. We were at the state fair last year. We were there for the entire 12 days, and that was a big challenge. And I feel like a great ROI, but this year we decided to try a little different approach. So yeah, August 30th, we are like the premier sponsor for the day. So other days, you might have the Mall of America or Treasure Island, so big names. So we've got a campaign that we work with through the state college system called Minnesota Manufactured. And so that's what we're there at the state fair as. And basically we're doing a one-day all-in approach. And so we picked, not by chance, statistically the busiest day of the fair. So last year they had 250,000 people there in one day, and we're on a main intersection. So we're gonna have a big event tent, and then we've got a CNC mill to do customized dog tags the kids can get their names on it. We've got a kids
cool.
STEM activity, a med device assembly activity. Stratasys is partnered, so we've got a 3D printer there, virtual reality goggles for virtual tours of shops, live music, a backflipping robot, just all kinds of stuff. On all day. So we'll be there from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. And the whole point, I guess, is to kind of bring awareness to the community. I mean, we've obviously got a lot of manufacturing and a lot of great products produced here in Minnesota that a lot of people just don't know about. So just kind of giving a little bit of a change of perception to manufacturing, people walking by the booth, seeing music and cool activities and cool technology. Second is to then educate people and actually bring a little bit more information just on crews and manufacturing and the products manufactured here. So a little bit deeper dive. And then third is to actually have next steps for people too. So if somebody says, I need a job or I'm interested in learning more, I want to find out about what schools offer different programs, how I can find scholarships, we're there to help them. So we've actually got next steps that we can provide and actually help hold their hand through taking those steps. So pretty exciting stuff. I'm knee deep in it now. We've got just a ton of things that we're working out and, just details finalizing, but I'm going to have 116 volunteers over the course of 24 hours. So it's going to be a fun day. But if people are just out at the fair, for just out there with their family, obviously we'd love them to come visit, whether you're a manufacturer or not. There's just lots of cool activities for the kids, giveaways, of course. And then, of course, if manufacturers are there, we definitely want them to come visit and take a look. So,
yeah, it sounds like you have a lot of great opportunities for all ages. So everyone can stop by and learn something.
Yep, absolutely.
I love that. Do you have a favorite moment or something that happened last year that sparks a memory?
Yeah, for sure. The moment that's kind of burned in my memory is actually a high school tech ed instructor came by with his family to our booth, and he had a couple of young kids that were with him, and his 4-year-old daughter, I think, she was just super inquisitive, just loved to learn, and just the sweetest little girl. And somebody snapped a picture of us, but I'm sitting in front of our tabletop mini mill, and she's sitting on a stool next to me, and I'm sitting there showing her how to program a CNC machining center for a little 4-year-old girl, and she just ate it up, and she loved it. And I let her, work the keyboard and modify the program to put her name on the dog tag. But that was just a cool moment.
It's always great when the kids are interested in hands-on learning. My son's 6, and he would eat that up. He would love to do something like that. He comes in sometimes when I have Gibbs Cam open, and he's like, I need to learn this. This looks really cool.
Well, and that's a lot of the stuff we're doing is around youth engagement. So, often focus on high school age, which is already, it's tough to get their attention, but it's already in most cases a little too late to influence them. Maybe their parents or their friends have already influenced them enough. So a lot of what we're trying to figure out is how do you get kids at 3, 4, 5, 6, and obviously you're not going to talk about career paths at that point, but just let them touch and feel technology and see it in action and get an understanding of, just the idea that something is produced. And so, yeah, that'll go a long way. I think it might be 10 years down the road before it really has an impact, but I think that's, unfortunately what we should have been doing 10, 20, 30 years ago.
I remember when I was in school, middle school specifically, we had like these trimesters where we took specialty classes. And one of them for everyone through 6th, 7th, and 8th grade was a tech ed class where we got to actually use the tools, build stuff, take home. I still have a lot of the stuff that I did then. And I just don't think that's something they do that young anymore.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the schools have gotten away from it. Some of it's because of, state requirements for accreditation and, things that the classes that they have to, all students have to go through. So that's kind of pinched out some of the tech ed. And then, a lot of the schools have adopted more STEM focused programs, which are very similar. They're great. They're hands-on. They're teaching kids about engineering and manufacturing principles. The difference is they kind of focus more on the engineering front. And so kids come out of those. I've talked to kids who are running machining centers in their school as part of their STEM program, and they loved it. They loved the hands-on, but they never equated that to manufacturing. And so they kind of just, well, these are engineering related things. So I'm interested in going to become an engineer, which is great. But they never really realized that hands-on learning, it being a CNC machinist, for example, is very related to engineering, but it doesn't require the 4-year degree, doesn't require all those classes. You can, still, of course, be a very intelligent student, but take a little different path. And so that's part of it, is just educating kids on the difference between what STEM is and what portion of STEM is actually manufacturing.
Yeah, I totally agree. Ironically, I have a master's in STEM education. That's what I did before coming to GibbsCAM. And so I taught it, and we did 3D printing, and I mean, the kids love it and they're super into it. But I totally agree with you, though. Even I didn't do a good job because I don't think that even STEM educators a lot of time are aware of the connections you can make into the manufacturing industry. It is very focused on problem solving and critical thinking and all things that everybody in manufacturing uses. But are we drawing the line to that, I think is something everyone could do.
One of the biggest problems is we don't have enough teachers going into it, right? So how can you have a middle school, high school, or otherwise program, or even tech school, without instructors? And so when you have less people going into the industry, you have less people to pick from to maybe go into those trades related teaching programs. And then without enough students going into those classes, it doesn't justify the teacher. It's just kind of this full circle of challenges of getting young kids interested. I was super excited. My cousin's daughter was just graduating high school and knew she was a hands-on kid. She did a lot of lasering. She had a laser engraver in her bedroom. But when I asked her what she was doing after high school, she's going to St. Cloud State for the tech ed teachers program there. Super excited about that. But the numbers in that are just very minimal. And so if we don't have teachers going into it and we don't have the awareness of the programs, it's so hard to get kids exposed to it.
And MPMA, you do connect with high schools and colleges as much as you can, I assume?
Yeah. So what we try and do is actually just a meeting with the school district this morning. Our goal is to more arm the industry with the information, those relationships. So we do a lot of engagement, yes, with the high schools, the tech schools, and helping programs, get off the ground with, a technical education program and helping with curriculum and equipment and things like that. But there's only so much we can do as the association with the staff we have. So our goal really is more, how do you educate employers and manufacturers on how to engage with the schools and help those schools engage with the manufacturing industry. So that way you've got, 50 or 100 manufacturers around the state engaging rather than one association trying to do it. So we've got a lot of manufacturers who are involved in their local high schools, but again, it's somewhat dependent on the school to even have a program or have support from the district. So it's never ending.
Yeah, I think Minnesota is something special because that's why I brought up the point with if you were involved in schools, because when I was teaching STEM, there weren't those resources. I wasn't in Minnesota. I taught in Wisconsin and Florida, but I didn't have resources in those states that I was aware of that I could reach out to even, connect with. So I think you guys are doing admirable work and and getting out there to help the community. And manufacturing in Minnesota is something to aspire to. I just think the community there is fantastic. So you guys are doing some really great work.
We're trying.
Yeah. Well, go to the State Fair August 30th, see Manufacture Day, visit Steve and all of the 116 visitors and volunteers that will be there. Sounds like you guys have some really great opportunities for everyone.
For sure.
Good. Well, let's move into something fun, a little segment that's my favorite called Forgivable or Fireable. I'm going to give you some situations maybe that you've seen or survived in your past. And you tell us, is it forgivable in a teaching moment or are they walking out with a box?
All right.
All right. First one, an operator clocks in, sets up the job, but then disappears to take a nap in the shipping area.
That seems like a cultural issue and a trust issue. So I'm going to say send them packing with their box.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you on that one. That's pretty rough. Next one, a machinist uses their inspection report to level a wobbly table and leaves it there.
That's definitely a teaching moment. I think I'd have to forgive that, but have some interesting questions to ask at the same time.
Right. Okay, 3, someone keeps using the company forklift to accidentally block off their preferred parking spot.
Ooh, that's a tough one because, yeah, obviously they know they're doing something wrong. It's not exactly I would say forgivable, but a firm last chance warning because obviously it could be safety issues too. So that's an interesting solution, but yeah, definitely a bad judgment call. So that would be a short-lived forgivable experience.
For sure. All right, next, a quality tech insists the parts are good, but doesn't write anything down because it slows him down.
I'd say along the same lines of forgivable, but yet a clear, yeah, you can't do that again because obviously they good chance that person isn't quite fit for the role, I would guess. So idea short-lived.
Read, especially in the era of all the retirements and tribal knowledge and needing to document.
Yeah.
That's teach them once and then I agree. And the last one, someone replaces the coolant with blue Gatorade for April Fools, and it takes 2 hours before anyone notices.
Wow, that's another really bad judgment call and a question of whether that person belongs in the industry. But I guess depending on how else they're doing, I guess I might forgive them and have a very, very blunt teaching moment. But yeah, that would be a tough one to imagine that they're going to last in the industry long if they think that that's a good idea.
Well, I think that was really good. That was fun. Thanks for playing along with me. And it sounds like you have some experience that maybe you've dealt with a couple of things in the past, but you're more
interesting. Yeah, I've had some interesting ones over the year. I tend to lean towards giving people the benefit of the doubt and imagining, what life circumstances might be causing them to do some of those interesting things. But yeah, unfortunately, I've had to part ways with people and I've had to forgive some people. So
yeah, it's a good quality in a leader. So let's dig into your background then. How did you start in manufacturing? I know I mentioned a little bit, but what got you into everything?
Yeah, I mean, fortunately or unfortunately, I think common to our industry, a lot of us come in by way of family and other people that we've been around. So yeah, my grandfather was a toolmaker in the Navy, and then for his career, my dad was a toolmaker in the Navy, and then for his career, my brother was a toolmaker. My sister was almost a toolmaker. She went to school at St. Paul College and then decided to shift careers. But so yeah, I've been around it my entire life, and I guess we like to say it was in my blood. So like you mentioned earlier, we had the opportunity to go work for the family business part-time at 13 years old for 3 summers, part-time, minimum wage. So I was making, I think, $4.25 an hour, which even back then, I mean, that was a while ago, but even back then I thought, yeah, this just does not add up. It wasn't fun work. And, I didn't enjoy cleaning toilets and stuff like that, but I also understood at the time that was kind of the profession to play. Like you got to put in the hours and show that you can do it. And it was interesting because our father kind of, I mean, we never really worked with him. He kind of just had us report to someone else. And the clear message was, you're the easiest to fire here. If you screw up, no problem getting rid of you if you're not going to put in the effort and set a good example. So we really had no benefits, no special favors or anything like that. We had to do the grunt work. And then after that, we were told you never get to come back unless you come back with experience or training or education or, so wasn't a free ride. We had to go kind of explore on our own a little bit. So I think that was a great life lesson for me. I mean, those were opportunities afforded to us, so I was blessed with that. But at the same time, it wasn't a freebie, so we had to kind of prove ourselves. So yeah, then I left at a few other jobs, and then worked for a little bit out in Colorado, and then the rest is history. Worked at the family business for another 20 years after that. So kind of years went by fast.
Yeah, it sounds like a good lesson in building character too, when you have those situations and not everything's handed to you, and you have to work hard to get where you are. And so it's
definitely a concern from others in the industry. I mean, employees that have seen what nepotism can do and the damage it can do to a company when, next generation takes over and they haven't worked for it or earned it and don't have the right attitude, and it can destroy companies. And that often does happen. So I think it was good for us that we learned that lesson early, and that we had to work for it and had to earn it. And, that helped build respect with others, within the company. I had their employees that, eventually took over managing people that had years more experience than I did. But I at least, I understood the roles, I understood the company. And so it was
good. That's good. How did you go from Dynamic Group then to MPMA?
It's a great question, and that's one that I haven't even really shared with that many people. So I guess I'll delve into my personal life a little bit here. But yeah, I know. No, I mean, like I said, I was with the family business for 20 years, and it was my second home, my second family. To this day, when I go back and visit, I give hugs to people, and and send them a message on their birthday, and so it's still an important part of my life. But after so many years of doing pretty much every role in the company, knowing every customer, every employee, and got to the point where I'd have managers coming to me saying, "Well, Steve, why did we do this?" or "What's what's the plan with this customer?" And I felt like I started to hold the company back a little bit because again, I had so much of the experience, but yet it was only my experience and only my experience with that company. So, and plus it was I wouldn't say it was holding me back, but I was limiting my experience. Again, I really only had the experience within those four walls for the most part. So yeah, I just, after 20 years decided that it was just a change I wanted to make. And so still love the business and still love the people and still engage with them. They've been members of MPMA since before I was born, which is how I obviously got involved in MPMA years ago. It was a cool story. This is what I'd love to share with people about what the kind of the real value and purpose of MPMA is. There's a lot of purposes, I guess, but over the years I got involved in MPMA. My dad just encouraged me to start going to meetings and join the committee and join the board as just a volunteer board member, and got to know a lot of people. Again, I never worked for my dad. I always, reported to other people. So he never really mentored me directly, but he always put me around other people. And so through MPMA, I got to be exposed to just tons of industry leaders that were just fantastic people in the industry. And so they became mentors of mine, and I learned so much from being around MPMA. And then when I was leaving my family business, I actually just reached out to the director of MPMA, who I'd known for probably 15 years, and just said, "Hey, I'm looking to move on. Do you know of anyone I should talk to?" And I no inkling, no idea of doing anything with MPMA. It was just MPMA was a resource. And I called her at 6 p.m., I think, on a Thursday night. And she said, "Well, 7 a.m. tomorrow morning, I'm meeting with the MPMA board chair to talk about who's going to run MPMA next. Is that something you're interested in?" I have no idea. I don't know anything about running an association, but it was an honor to be even, implied that I could do it. And then it just seemed like it was fate, right? After all the experience I had with MPMA, and then literally the moment I'm leaving is when they needed a new leader. And so that was 7 years ago, almost exactly 7 years ago. And yeah, it was just a huge opportunity for me to just get to work with people that were my mentors and peers in the industry, and now get to actually help them with their businesses. So just a super awesome opportunity for me. And I feel so blessed to do what I do with MPMA. I mean, it's just such an awesome organization, and I get to do some really fun things and still be around manufacturing every day.
Yeah, I've met several of the people that work with you, and it's a great group of people. Because everyone is so kind, and so it's always a pleasure working with them. It's funny that I had a similar kind of story, because after teaching, I went to work for GibbsCam, and I worked with my parents for a while, and they got me into all things GibbsCam and helped me out. And then I was also looking for opportunities to expand, and that's what led me to Midwest Cam. And so it was kind of, I feel like, fate as well. Like, I just went on LinkedIn one day and saw that Midwest Cam was hiring. So I was like, oh, maybe this is my chance. So, and it worked out really well, but definitely worth taking a chance. And I always tell people that if you have a chance, take it. You'll regret that you don't, even if it doesn't work out, at least you tried.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a lesson that it's not luck. It's not fate exactly. It's the fact that you surrounded yourself with good people, and your parents, maybe helped you surround yourself with good people and good influences. So at the end of the day, those opportunities come up because you do a good job and are a good person, and then you surround yourself with good people, and the rest just kind of happens. So it's a lot of years, I think, of preparing yourself to make sure that when you have those, whether it's life challenges or life changes, that those opportunities are there for you. So it is a good lesson.
Yeah. So what's one thing that you learned way later in your career, maybe than you'd care to admit, but that could have been useful when you were younger or earlier on?
I think just realizing that there's always a ton to learn. And I think actually next week we're doing a little program on, we call it Manufacturing 101. It's just a entry level, like just some of the language and just some of the basics of manufacturing. It's like so many of us, I think, take for granted the things we do know, but at the same time, there's always so much more that we don't know. A few years ago, when I was taking on this role, I sat down with a CNC machinist that I knew really well. And I said, here's a bunch of things that are popping up at me that I'm like, I don't know what these things are. Like, I've never heard of this type of machine. I've never heard of this type of technology or program or whatever. And I'm like, I feel like a dummy. And this guy is one that had been doing it for 25 years. And I respected him a ton. I mean, he knew a ton of all, everything related to machining. And he's like, well, I've never heard of that either. Like, okay, well, then I don't feel like such a dummy. So I think, it's easy, especially when you're new into a career or new into a role, that it's like, well, you want to prove yourself and show your, value and show your knowledge. And in reality, we are all still have so much to learn, and we're never going to learn it all. And so one, realizing and being more humble that I still have a ton to learn, but also, again, back to surrounding yourself with good people. I don't need to know everything. There's no way I'm going to learn everything, and there's no way I'm going to be an expert on everything. I don't need to be. And again, that's what I love about MPMA, is I just surround myself with all these resources, whether it's on, CAM software or it's on succession planning in your business. There's other people that you can, build relationships with that can help with all that.
Yeah, I feel that, because I mean, I can talk to companies about software solutions and how we can help them, but when it comes to the technical stuff, I couldn't do it without my team. And they have taught me so much over these past, with Midwest CAM 3 years. They have been incredible in helping me to better understand CNC and CAM, but there are still so many things that I would be like, I don't know, but we have this really great team that will definitely be able to help you out. So that's so important, being able to have a team and lean on them. And it's kind of like a family.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right. I have another one for you that goes along with the good advice for people starting out. I'm going to call this segment, Try That in a Tech School. Have you noticed what's working when it comes to attracting young talent?
Yeah, the interesting thing is too, if you look at the tech schools, the average age for a lot of the machine tool programs at tech schools is 26, 27 years old. So when you say you're attracting young talent, well, most of us in the industry would say 26, 27 is pretty young. So I guess that is young talent. But again, if we're talking about trying to get, recent high school graduates, we're not really doing it right. As an industry, we're not successful at that and getting a lot of kids to just come right out of high school and choose this as their initial career path. So I will say that's a big gap that we have to figure out, is, happily take the 26, 27-year-olds, and in the end, they might be better, or, more likely to succeed just because they've gone through some of the other life experiences that they need to before they settle down. But also, we still need to get some a little younger. So, obviously, the social media front and the technology front with, AI and 3D printing and, all the cool technologies that young people do relate to and understand, we've got to figure out, again, how to get them earlier and younger, so they start hearing it, seeing it in, 8, 9, 10, 12 years old, but then start to understand the application, right? So when they get to high school age, how do we help them understand, yes, there is manufacturing here in Minnesota. Yes, this is the type of products we make here, and this is what those jobs look like. Because to your point earlier, there are a lot of kids excited in those things, and they're getting hands-on, they're using it. They just don't see the connection between that and manufacturing and those career paths. So I think we've seen that be successful with some. We just need to become more mainstream, and so we've got a long ways to go. I mean, I think society is becoming more accepting or more supportive of manufacturing. I was in the military, as you mentioned too. So I kind of equate the two, that, people will support military, right? And send care packages and say, we love the military.
Mm-hmm.
But do I want my son or daughter going into harm's way and joining the military? Maybe not. Or yeah, manufacturing and the trades are great, but my kid can afford college and he's a straight A student. So why would I? So it's changing that perception so that when those students are excited about being hands-on, and again, these are intellectual. I mean, a CNC program, a CNC machinist, or equivalent jobs, those are very intellectually stimulating. I mean, they have the skills and abilities of an engineer. They are oftentimes great mathematicians. So I think we just need to get those kids to understand that those are actually very viable, very highly skilled, and highly paid career paths. So again, once they make that connection, we see success, and until we make that connection, it's a struggle.
Yeah, I've been talking about that a lot lately. And on the last episode that we did, we talked about it too, in that when I was in high school, there wasn't really an opportunity to choose what you wanted to do. It was, you're going to a 4-year school. That's it. If you want a future, you're going to a 4-year school. And it was kind of seen as, I don't know how to describe it, but like, don't go to a tech school. Only people who were struggling in high school are going to go to a tech school.
The alternative, right?
Yeah. And now that I'm learning about it and have seen it and I see the benefits of it, I am always an advocate for not having to choose what you're going to do for the rest of your life when you're 18 years old. That concept to me is wild. And so investing such a huge amount of money into a 4-year, 8-year program, whatever you're going to do, if you can take time, go to a trade school, gain those skills, and then take that time, have a career. But then if you want to go to a 4-year school, you can still go to a 4-year school. The loans aren't going to be as outrageous, and you'll be able to have income and do all of these things, maybe get a house while you're going to school. I mean, to me, that sounds like such a smart opportunity. And you're right in that these kids that are going into the programs and all of the people that work in manufacturing are so smart. I mean, there's times where I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. You are like, that is, I mean, it's incredible, the skills that they possess. So there's so many options. So I think you're right in getting into the schools and talking to the younger generations about how these are two viable options. Both are great. So I really think
I got to get this published, but I did an analysis. Actually, I got by with my 2-year degree for 20 years and had a successful career and did well, but I was running out of time on my GI Bill benefits. So I actually did go back 3 years ago and finish my 4-year degree at Bethel University and got a finance degree. And so after 25 years, finally got my 4-year degree. But I actually did an analysis of comparing somebody who's the same student who goes and gets a 2-year technical degree or goes and gets a 4-year like managerial type degree, and both same financial opportunities but if you take the cost of both degrees or the opportunity to earn for both situations, right? I mean, a 2-year technical program, for sure you can start earning 2 years in, but most of them are already working while they're getting their 2-year program. And then whereas the 4-year degree, you're racking up debt, and maybe you're working in the school store or at the coffee shop or something while you're going to school, but then you're also racking up debt. And the difference between the earning potential and then the savings potential and investment potential for your first 10, 15 years or whatever, while one's able to set money aside and one's paying off debt, the results are astounding. I mean, the 2-year technical degree was well ahead of the 4-year degree person by the time they were 35. And that was apples to apples. That wasn't, trying to be as non-biased as possible. So the opportunities, again, like you mentioned, I mean, when I'm talking to kids about being an engineer, and when I say, well, what kind of engineering do you want to be? Well, I don't know. I want to go to this school and I want to get an engineering degree. Like, well, have you thought of going technical first? Because as a manufacturer, I would much rather hire the person who went through a 2-year program or, became a skilled tradesperson and then got their 4-year engineering degree, or maybe never even got their engineering degree, but understood the applications and the principles versus just a straight 4-year degree. It provides a lot of value to have that hands-on skill set. Plus, then you can get an employer to help pay for the college. You could be making good money in the meantime. So not to say one path is right or wrong. I mean, obviously there's still a lot of places for 4-year degrees, but to your point, it's not for everyone. It's not the right path or the only path. There are just so many different opportunities.
Yeah, I agree. So let's see if you have anything for this. Can you give us one myth about Gen Z that needs to go?
I'm still struggling with that, right? As understand, okay, is this my perception or my frustrations? Is it reality? I think the big perception is that, there's an amount of laziness or lack of drive. And I think what we see, I was just talking to someone yesterday who just retired yesterday after 40 years as a machinist and CNC programmer. And he said, man, the apprentices we're seeing come through now are just amazing. And, you know, the perception is, well, they don't want to work for things. But the reality, I think, where they see it from a lot of them, and this isn't all, of course, is that they want more. And so we see it as like, oh, you're prematurely expecting these things, right? Like you're being cocky, like you think you deserve all this. But what I think it really is that they want to grow, they want to learn, and yeah, they're a little impatient maybe. But when we need skilled talent to move up faster than ever before, that's a good trait, right? I mean, he was just giving an example of an apprentice who came up to him and said, "Hey, can I get the manual for this machine?" And he said, "Well, is there something wrong with it? Is there a maintenance tech working on it?" He said, "No, I just want to learn. I want to learn how to, do this differently on the machine." And we see that from a lot of apprentices. They're just they're a lot more tech savvy.
Yeah.
They're a lot more just, intuitive or just, wanting to just learn more and explore. And so again, there's pros and cons to any kind of trait, right? But I think the new young people coming in are hungry to learn, and we just have to figure out how do you feed it to them. You can't just, put the hands of, or the, a 5-axis machining center in the hands of a 19-year-old who's taking a course in machine tool and then just give them the free rein. But you also can't say, hey, you can't touch that for 5 years. You have to be able to help them and invest in them. So long answer to your short question, but I think we're starting to figure that out.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to say it too. And I don't know if I've even thought of it that way, that you just have to take the characteristics and find a different way to work with them. Like the impatience, I never would have thought of it that way. It is really a good characteristic if you use it in the right way. Sure. So a very good piece of advice for leaders. That was great. All right, now I have a really good one. Speaking of Gen Z, let's play Would You Rather Shop Edition. So these are CNC adjacent dilemmas. They're ridiculous, but you still have to pick one. Would you rather teach G code to 30 teenagers on a sugar high at the state fair, or debug a mystery post from 1997 with a note that says, "Do not touch this"?
Oh man, I'm not the most patient person, so working with 30 kids in sugar high would probably be a challenge. But so I'd probably take the 1997 post and try and solve that.
Yeah. Both very difficult in their own respect. Would you rather wear a bunny suit during Minnesota Manufactured Day, or share a booth with someone who keeps calling your CNC a spinny drill robot?
I got to be in a parade once wearing a bee costume, and that was a blast. I got to just be a totally different personality than usual. So as much as I would like to help educate the spinny machine thingy person or whatever, I think it'd be fun to be in a bunny suit. So I'm going to go with that.
Hey, I love that spin. That's such a great way to think of it. It's so true. All right. Would you rather carry 3 buckets of hot cheese curds through the state fair, or be stuck on a CNC that alarms every 42 seconds and no one knows why?
Do I get to eat any of the cheese curds?
If you want.
Okay, well, I like cheese curds, so I'll go with that.
I don't know if everybody understands the concept of state fair cheese curds unless you're from the Midwest.
Well, the problem is after the first 12 minutes of eating cheese curds, the rest just become cold and stale. So then
stuck together.
It's like Sweet Martha's cookies. After you finish the first half of the bucket and you start getting nauseous, the second half of the bucket is not quite as good. But
it's true. It's true. All right, let's do a couple quick hitters. Would you rather run a CNC machine at the fair or run the dunk tank?
Well, sure, for sure, the CNC machine. Yeah.
And would you rather have 3 back-to-back board meetings, or clean coolant with food booth napkins? Sorry, clean coolant with food booth napkins.
I sit in meetings a lot, and so sometimes it's just nice to have it. Cleaning coolant tanks was not my favorite activity when I was 13, 14 years old, but honestly, some days that would probably be a relief. So I'll say how many meetings I've had this week, I'll go with the coolant tank.
There you go. All right. Well, you survived and somehow you made it all sound reasonable. Before we head into our last segment, I want to hit something that you mentioned earlier on about how much the industry thrives when people help each other. Can you share some examples of how you've seen businesses support each other?
It's super cool because this year we're celebrating our 70th anniversary of MPMA. And so what I'm focusing on is doing some articles in our magazine that aren't necessarily the history of a given company, but more so the history of the industry and how intertwined it is. And so I'll give you one quick example of my family business. Is actually my dad's business partner. This is a few years ago, but about 50 years ago, when he was leaving his business, a well-respected company that's still around today and very successful. He went to the owner of the company and said, I'm going to be leaving. I'm going to be starting my own business and I'm going to be competing with you. And the response from the owner maybe could have or should have been, get the heck out of here and take a hike. Instead, he said, how much work do you need from us? And it's one example, but I hear that time and time again about people, again, when they're starting off on their own and companies willing to help them and, again, mentors and leaders in the industry willing to help them. We've got 3 or 4 companies I can think of just in the last few years, young people that were just starting their own machine shops. And that's a daunting prospect for a lot of people, especially people who have been doing it for enough years. It's like, why would you want to start from scratch? But big challenges ahead of them. And it's something I've been blessed to have a relationship with those people and help steer them towards certain leaders that I know and say, hey, you should talk to this person. I think they'd be a great person to talk to, great ideas and advice and whatnot. And so, they're starting to say, well, hey, that's how I ended up getting my first job. My first work in our shop was by meeting that leader who, had some overflow work that was helping us. So it's just time and time again, we see it again, people who just build those relationships with the peers in the industry. And then when it comes time to needing help and support or growth, those people are there to support each other. So as much as, we're competitive with our industry and we'll fight tooth and nail to try and stay ahead of our competition, at the end of the day, we know that we're all better if we all work with each other. So it's great to see those examples pretty much daily.
Yeah, I love that. What's something you think that makes the Minnesota manufacturing community unique?
I guess I'll say 2 things. One, there are high level. The reason we're the Minnesota Precision Manufacturing Association is that we have a lot of high-end, high-tech regulated industries in Minnesota. So we've got a great business base here between the med device and defense industry and electronics and just some really great companies that have been around for 50, 70 years that were doing amazing things, getting people on the moon and solving all kinds of world challenges. And so then the industry, the supply chain beneath that, most of the manufacturers that we deal with, obviously we're built and survived and thrived out of that industry. But then just our culture here too, right? I guess I hate to use the cliche Minnesota nice phrase, but we've got a lot of great people in Minnesota. And I think, again, just that mentality of like helping your neighbor, again, it could be a competitor. You don't just, roll out the red carpet for them and make life easy for them, but giving people opportunities and supporting each other. That's just, I think, a part of our culture in Minnesota.
I would agree. I've seen it everywhere in the Midwest. I grew up in Wisconsin, and so it was very similar there.
Minnesota is much better than Wisconsin.
It depends on what you're talking about. If you're talking about football teams, then we'll have a problem.
Yeah, that's not.
Support changes everything. And honestly, some things that you said could probably go on shop walls everywhere. So I appreciate that. That was good advice. I have another fun segment for you. We're going to call it Shop Floor Generator. It goes along with what we were talking about in advice you can give to people. So if you got to put one sign in every break room across the Midwest, what would it say?
I think to kind of summarize what we've been talking about a lot is surround yourself with great people. Again, when I think of my own kids now that are still young, but they're growing up and starting to engage a lot more, more sleepovers, more sports and stuff. And I think about how do I, as a parent, make sure that they succeed is like my parents did for me, was making sure I was around good people. And I think that applies just as much in business and your skills, technical skills, everything. So I think that solves a lot of life's challenges is having good people around you.
It's better than mine. I wrote, if you have time to glean, you have time to clean.
There you go. That is a good one for breaker. Yes.
So that was better. That was much better. Yours could even go on a t-shirt. That's
Yeah, sure.
So what's something that you used to believe in the industry that you've completely changed your mind on?
Oh, that's hard because like I said, grew up in it. So I don't know if there's been any major surprises in the industry or things that I didn't see coming. But again, I think just understanding how much people, I'll say, bleed manufacturing. Again, some of these people that, when you start getting in the industry, like any business or any market or any industry, you come across people that's like, I don't really want to work with that person, or, negative attitudes or something.
Mm-hmm.
But realizing almost all those people still love manufacturing, and they might not sometimes go about it the right way, but they believe in making better things and better products. And that's just common within the industry, is that even, again, there's challenges, there's always problems, right? There's always quality problems. There's always going to be people problems. But at the end of the day, man, manufacturers just love making things. They love solving problems. And so it's just a really cool group of people to be around. And whether you always get along with everyone is another question, but we all kind of have the same goal, is to make really cool things.
I agree. That leads me to my last question for you. What gives you hope for the future of manufacturing, especially in Minnesota and the Midwest?
I could go off in some, fluffy answer, I guess, but I will say there's some real headway now from at the state level, although you don't necessarily agree on every policy the state puts forth, but they seem to really be focused on the trades. And again, a lot of the STEM focus, a lot of the, the perception of society is changing a little bit. So I am optimistic. I mean, I've been doing this work for a lot of years, even as a volunteer member before, and there was a lot of frustration on, are we really making headway? And I feel like we're starting to see that tide turn a little bit. Again, just the perception of what a 4-year degree means versus a real career path, and whatever that entails. And so I think we've got a long ways to go for sure, but I'm optimistic that, again, we've got good young people, and we've got some good ideas, and we've got some more support at all levels. So we just have to forge ahead. We can't sit and talk about it any longer. We have to move ahead. And that's what our focus has been at MPMA, is we got to get stuff done. We don't have time to think about it, talk about it, and dream about it. Start moving forward. And we're pushing ahead, probably maybe faster than we should sometimes, but we're making the progress.
There's a lot of things changing, and I think Minnesota's doing a really great job at keeping up. So I agree with you. Good. Well, anything else that we'd like to share? Any plugs? Where can people find you?
Just a reminder again about August 30th, the state fair. And I mean, the easiest way, of course, is just go to mpma.com, whether you want to sign up for the state fair to volunteer, or you attend another event, or find out about what we're doing on our dual training grant program with the state, with Department of Labor, and our Drive for 5 program. There's just tons of stuff going on. So I'm not going to try and divert everybody to 6 different websites or pages, but if you go to mpma.com, and I'm not telling you to go there to promote MPMA or to join or anything else, but there's just so many things we've got going on in different ways. Yeah. And again, we can't do it on our own. And so we're hoping that we get more of the industry to start being a part of that, whether you're engaging with a high school, volunteering at the state fair, mentoring a student, whatever you can do to just help drive the industry forward, and that hopefully benefits each company. But so, yeah. And then of course, don't hesitate. I mean, reach out to me personally. If you go to mpma.com, you'll find my information there, but I'd love to connect with people to talk about just different ways they can get involved and to help their company directly. It's not just about the overall good of the society and industry. It's also about your company, and how can you be better at developing people, and how can you deal with things like tariffs and healthcare costs and all that good stuff that we won't get into today. But yeah, MPMA is a resource here to help manufacturers. So.
And you guys have a journal too. They can sign up on your website. Sure.
Yeah, of course. In this day and age, we have digital versions too, but we do still have our print magazine that goes out to about 7,000 businesses. Wow. And then, but you can of course get it digitally. So just go to our mpma.com for that, to our magazine. Again, we try and focus on solutions and the resources. So the magazine is a great resource to just learn more about different programs and what different companies are doing. So
we're always excited to get it. And the LinkedIn videos are my favorite.
I've got my next one planned. So I won't go into what that is yet, but talking to my wife and kids about helping me do the video sometime soon. I'll say a little hint is I need to get it done before it gets cold. I'll leave it at that.
Cool. Yeah, it'll be hard to beat the last one. The one with your son was great.
Yeah, I still have a scar on my knee from that crash. People thought that was maybe just fake, but no, that was a real fall and real blood running down my leg, and so it was a fun one.
Well, well, thank you so much for joining me. It was really great to talk. You have a lot of great information to share, and everyone should definitely check out MPMA and manufacturing in the community. So
Yeah,
that's all for now.
this was fun. I've been in a podcast like this before. You threw a lot of surprises at me, so that was good. It was fun.
Oh, good. I'm glad. I'm glad. But that's all for now. Remember, always simulate twice and then act surprised anyways. We'll see you next time in the underground.